than I am, but one thing that our honoree and I share together is that we have a birthday of the same date, and it's September 30th, 1929. Anthony Palermo was born in Rochester, New York, near the national landmark home of Susan B. Anthony. He graduated from Aquinas Institute at the University of Michigan in 1951 and then the Georgetown Law Center, and served in the Army and the Counterintelligence Corps during the Korean War. His public sector employment commenced in 1956 at the U.S. Department of Justice as a trial attorney in the Internal Security Division, followed by appointment as Assistant United States Attorney General in Manhattan from 1958 to 1960. Then designation as the Assistant Attorney General in charge in Rochester, New York in 1961. He experienced private sector legal employment in a wide variety of cases and firms, initially 20 years in a small firm with a broad general practice, which included court-assigned capital cases, capital offense cases, and criminal matters, and later he was in partnerships in medium-sized and larger firms, concentrating in torts products, liability, medical malpractice, discrimination, and general commercial and business litigation. He became a fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers in 1974, and since 1999 has been counsel at the firm of Woods, Oviatt, and Gilman in Rochester. An enthusiastic leader of the organized bar, his service spans five decades at local, state, regional, and national levels, including elective offices of President of the Monroe County Bar and New York State Bar, New York State Delegate, member of the Board of Governors of the ABA Secretary in the House of Delegates for over 25 years. His efforts helped to establish court-regulated lawyer funding and created the New York Client Security Fund, which he served as the charter chair of that from 1981 to 1985. Later became known as the Lawyers Fund for Client Protection. The fund's mission, of course, is to protect law clients from misuse of their property in the practice of law, and to promote public confidence in the integrity of the legal profession. He's listed in the current and previous editions of Who's Who in America, Who's Who in American Law, Who's Who in the World, and the Best Lawyers in America. Join me in recognizing one of the best lawyers that we have in our group, Tony.
That I would ever be up here. I want to thank you all for that kind welcome, and I can assure you I will appreciate it by not reading the 12 pages that I have prepared for my remarks. Probably because Judith sent me an email reminding me that the remarks are limited to about 2 sentences.
No!
But you know I can't say anything in 2 sentences. And it would be inappropriate to just limit that. But I do want to thank all of you for the privilege of working with you, because as those of you who know, the thrill of being part of this organization is the energy and the sense of doing something meaningful that you get from working with the caliber of the people who are active in the Senior Lawyers Division, and especially those who have served as chairs of the division, such as John Pickering and many of you here tonight. My wife would say, how long are you going to be doing this thing? You've been doing it for 55 years in the bar, and don't you ever want to retire or quit? And I'd say, well, one more meeting, and I'd come back and I'd talk about John Pickering or George Kane or, people who are 10 years older than I am, and they're dynamic and enthusiastic and pointing out the problems of the world and trying to come up with the causes for it and maybe even cures on occasion. So I really want to thank all of you, particularly in this room, for keeping me youthful. People in my hometown say, "You still here?" And basically, the thing that keeps me here is the excitement of the practice of law, which I have been fortunate to have been engaged in for over 55 years with some very wonderful lawyers, starting with a very, very small firm in Rochester after 5 years in my public sector employment. So I want to thank all of you. I did have the pleasure of knowing John Pickering quite well. John and I chaired were presidents of our respective state bar associations at the same time. I was president of the New York State Bar in 1979, and John was president of the DC Bar. And we together formed the Mid-Atlantic Bar Conference, where no one wanted the District of Columbia to be in their group. The Southern Bar didn't want them. Nobody wanted New York. New England didn't want us. We were too darn independent, too powerful, too large. And so the feeling of those of us in both New York and the District of Columbia were, why shouldn't we have an organization too, like everybody else? So we did. We formed the Mid-Atlantic Bar Conference, and it continues to exist today. One thing about John Pickering is, those of you who knew him, is he was not afraid to express his opinion. He didn't have to agree with you and didn't always try to conform to what others believed in. He believed in matters, and he was very vocal about doing that. As you know, I probably share that view of life. I like to call life as I see it. And those of you who know my views on a current subject of interest in the American bar that's going to be discussed here probably know how I feel about that issue. But in deference to those of you here whom I love and respect who disagree with my views, as well as the memory of our good friend John, I'm going to keep my counsel private tonight, but maybe not for the whole week. I could go on about my love of the law and the profession, and the fact that it is a profession, and it's always been that way to me. As I mentioned to Harry Hathaway earlier this evening, it wasn't a question of how much time we put in to a matter. It was a question of getting a result. That was the important thing. You didn't keep track of your time. If you got a good result, you got paid, and you appreciated it. But it was serving the client that was the important factor. And to some extent, the legal profession has gotten away from that. But I still believe in the fundamental core values of who we are as a legal profession, and I will continue to advocate for them. So without saying more on that, I'm reminded, and I reflect upon that saying of interestingly enough, a comic strip creator, an artist, who said, "The past is history, the future is a mystery, and the present is a gift of God." And today, you have made this a wonderful present for me and my family, and I thank all of you, and I wish God's blessing on all of us and upon the American Bar Association. Thank you very much.
Ready?
Thank you.